G'day guys, Rob here. Today I'm going to do a trap video for you. Actually sitting on a game trail here. So it runs up that way, can't really see it, goes up around, back up that way through there. Take you up further uphill and show you some others. You probably all know what a game trail looks like anyway, but the idea is to show you that it's not always a perfect situation when you're trying to set up a trap. You mightn't have any trees around for deadfalls or spring snares or anything like that. So I'm going to show you a trap today with a couple of variations of how you can actually rig it for different environments, different situations. Okay guys, further up the hill here, country opens up and there's a lot of this thick, sticky grass stuff here. But this trail behind me is quite obvious in this sort of country. You can see it where they've cut through the grass and it's a constant highway for the animals. If I move aside, you can really see it. Stands out, even a blind man could find that. So yeah, this is perfectly illustrates what I'm talking about with the trap I'm going to show you. There's no trees here for a spring snare or deadfall or anything like that. So yeah, I'll give you a different option and variations on that, so you can change it up how you see fit, or depending on what materials you've got at hand, or the environment, or the game you're targeting. So that wallabies on the way up here. Not going to be targeting any animals actually. It's illegal to trap animals in Australia. At least with a primitive trap. You can get a license and use commercial traps, but it's pretty tightly regulated, and it's mainly for dogs and foxes and things like that, feral dogs, dingoes. But to keep it a bit more realistic, rather than just throwing a stick into the trap when I make it, I've got a little friend here. This is going to be our trap test dummy. It doesn't have a name as yet, so if you come up with a good name, keep it clean, and put it in the comments, see if we can come up with a name for it. But as for now, it's just the trap test dummy. So anyway, I'm going to go back down, cut some timber, and show you these trap. So. Alright guys, just down here in the orchard area, out of the bush. I thought I'd do it down here just to give a bit more contrast in the trap so you can see it more clearly. I just found doing a couple of traps up in the bush before, you can't really see it that well, or you can't see the cordage as much, so I'm hoping down here on the grass it'll stand out a bit better for you. But again, it also shows that you can set this trap up anywhere, whether you're in grassland or swamp area, or up in the bush, doesn't matter. You can just utilise what you've got at hand to make it suit the conditions. So anyway, I'll start getting going. I don't know how much talking I'm going to be doing while I'm making it, so I'll just crack on and you can just sort of follow along. I'll point out the key parts. Have to point out down here I'm close to the roads too, so you may hear some car noises in the background, but you know, we'll work through that. Okay, so what I've got there, got two sticks, left a bit of a branch hanging off them, and I've just got two other straight pieces. And what I'm going to do is hammer them in the ground in line with each other or separate, and you're going to have rail will hook underneath those little bits, and then the second pole that I've got, hold all this together, the second piece will then get lashed onto the back, so you'll end up with something like that, this gap between them. You can do this another way if you've got some flexible trees or bamboo. You can actually form two loops and shove the ends into the ground, so you end up with like a horseshoe shape, and you have that gap between the two, and then you stick in vertical pieces. But I like this way. You're always going to find relatively straight sticks, whereas finding pieces that you can bend may not always be an option, but something to know anyway. And you can prepare these, you know, if you in bushland you can see game out, or rabbits or rats or anything out in the swamp area or out on the grassland, you can prepare these in a bundle, tie them up together, and you can just carry them with you in your pack or whatever, and you're ready to go when you get there. This is the basis of the trap, and then the actual mechanism, it's going to, like the springing mechanism, there's a couple of different variations you can do on that, but I'll make this up first and then I'll show you each one of those. Right, just to show you this. So I've just tied a knot in the end of it. Just tied a knot there. And then I'm just doing another little, making a loop and tying an overhand knot. Just tying an overhand knot back on itself. So again, just making a loop. Doesn't matter if you go forward or front, but make a loop and then bring it back around. And then you're just tying an overhand knot in that. Alright, that's just a constrictor knot. You can use whatever constrictor knot you want, just so when you pull on that, it's going to pull up tight. And the trick is to hold it all in place while you get this knot on. So you can however it works for you. So just wrapping it on there. Alright, we're going to do the other side. can do this with whatever cordage you've got. I'm using thicker stuff here just to so you better see it easier. But yeah, if you've got bank line, that'd be ideal. Pretty hard to get bank line in Australia. I haven't been able to find a source of it yet, other than buying online from America or from Britain. So for now, this is just cordage I've got from a local hardware shop. It's not paracord or anything like that. Alright, it's a matter of selecting a stick that you like for the triggering system. Bottom. I'll make it thick so you can see it easier. Right. So that's the components of the main trap. There'll be a springing system of some kind attached to this end of the stick, which will then hook underneath that, which will put pressure on it, and then the stick will be pinned underneath there, and then when it gets triggered, it can release, fly up. So the first version of this I'll do for you is with a spring pole. You can set this up on a trail if you had a tree available that you could use as a spring pole, but not always do you have that perfect situation when you've got a trail going through and it's lots of trails. You want to try to find one where it's a choke point where you have several trails coming into one to sort of hedge your bets of getting something, and there may not be any suitable trees nearby. So doing it this way, I've just got a bit of bamboo that I collected, but you might find a nice tree that you could chop down and use that as a spring pole and just hammer that into the ground wherever you choose to put the trap. Again, if you're in a swamp area, it's pretty easy to push that into the ground, and a lot of birds and rats and stuff around water courses. So anyway, so I'll put in the spring pole and I'll show you how this works. Alright guys, so just a little tip, just as it's easy when you drilling, putting a screw into something to pre-drill it. In the bush you do that with a smaller stick, so it's easier to put a smaller stick into the ground than a thicker one. So you put this in, pull it out, and then you can put the main pole in. If you're putting in a really big post, you might need 3 different size sticks. You just keep working them up, so you're not going from a tiny little hole up to a massive post. But yeah, it's only bamboo I've got here. It's like 1 inch. I've already sort of half sharpened the end of it, but yeah, so it's just a little bit bigger than the stick. So I'm going to tie a bit of cordage. This stuff's not ideal for doing traps, but thicker diameter, you'll be able to see it better on film. Got some, I was going to try to use this for you, but again you may not be able to see it. This is 2mm paracord. Got some other stuff there which is, I think it's 0.75mm paracord, so they call it. And it's great, like it's real stiff and it holds a memory, so you can actually shape it how you want it to sit. And that's what I'd use in a real trap situation, but you're just not going to see it on the film. So whole point of this exercise is to show you how it looks, and it's kind of useless if you can't actually see how it looks. So I'll use this stuff. Still be better if it was fluoro orange or something, but so what I'm going to do, got that pole in there, and I'll bend it down to where I think it's going to be, and then measure the amount of cordage I'm going to need. And somewhere there. If I had a lighter, I'd be melting the ends of these cords too, because they fray by it quite a bit. Just didn't bring a lighter with me today. I've got the ferro rod there, but I'm not going to go the effort of lighting a fire just for the purpose of building this trap. So for now, let's do this. So grab my trigger stick, that one, and I'm just going to tie that off on the end of it, however you see fit. Something like that. Then it'll sit in the trap like that, and it'll fly. Then you attach the other end to this pole. Don't know if you can see that in the camera, but there is a pole there, and I've left a little knot on the end there just to help prevent the it flying off the end as well. I may have to reposition my my spring pole. She's off to the side a bit, but anyway, and somewhere there. I'll just hold that. Okay, so now that that's done, make up the noose or the snare for it. I'm going to use that same cordage again. It's not the best. You really need something a bit more stiff, but you can wet that out and put clay or mud on it, and so when it dries it's going to hold its shape, or you can just use little sticks to position it. But for now, it's going to come down through the centre. You want it enough, and if you make it too long, you can always wrap the end of it around the end of the stick to shorten it up. But you want to make sure you've got enough, not too little. More is better. But it's going to be just an open-ended loop, so it's not actually a snare. The rope isn't going to tighten inside of a knot. It's just going to be held loose. So you could make this, if you had natural cordage, pull it up, because it's not requiring a knot to hold it tight. So, need to pull the trigger down. That's why you hang on to it, just in case it takes off on you. Alright, so I want knot there, coming down through here, plenty of cordage. back up to that knot. Right, somewhere about there, I'd say. Now it's going to be hard for me to tie this off and hold it down at the same time, so I may have to step out of frame for a second. Right. So we'll be back. Alright, so I've tied that knot in the end there. Hold that there. I've just actually tied that on twice. There's got 2 knots going on up there. And so I say you need to allow extra because that's right on the edge of how much I need. You wouldn't want it any shorter than that. But that'll work for this demonstration. Okay, so to set the trap, got that hooked on there. Keep my hands out of the actual snare part of it. I don't want to catch myself. It's a matter of getting it fine balance on it. Alright, put that on. Another trick you can do, when you've got this round pole, it doesn't want to stay on too well, just make a little berth there with your knife, so that when you put your trigger stick on there, it'll lock in a bit better. And you pull the pole down here, feed that loop through the in between the 2 poles. Make sure that's going to hook in there and doesn't fall off while you're trying to set it. And then that will sit there, like that. And you've got your loop here. And again, like I said, if it was a bit smaller, it would be a bit more cordage, it'd be better. What you can do is a bit of grass, you can try to just hold it up there, or whatever it takes. A little bit of stick. It's not going to matter what's above the trap, because it's going to be pinned up in here. So I can put a big stick up in there if I need to, just to hold that on the trap. If it stays. Right, so like that. So that's a set trap. What you do, if you're putting this on a game trail, you could hammer in other sticks around the side to help funnel the game through the trap. Or you can just get some branches, big leafy branches, and just position them there, or there might be a natural corridor where there's rocks and the animals are going between boulders. Creates a natural choke point anyway. Gives you that option to put it there. Just got to make sure it's going to stay in position when you walk away. As you can see, this is slowly moving in, so I need to fix that top stick up. This piece up here needs to be hooked up a bit better so it's going to stay there. Right. So then you get your little trap test dummy. Right, so your animal's going to come along, and you've got to imagine there's a game trail running through here, and it's going to go on there, and nothing's going to happen. Why didn't anything happen? Because this pole here is hooked on the side of there. Alright, so I've got to move that stick across further so that doesn't happen. So very carefully move that across a bit and take my little animal out. And that's why you should always try your trap before you leave it. Alright, so take two. So your animal comes along, jumps on there, and he's pinned to the top. If you use a stronger spring snare, or a spring pole, I should say, obviously he's going to be pinned a bit better. But the game animal we're looking at here are rabbits, rats. I think this trap, when I originally saw it, was called the Maori rat trap, and that was with the curved poles and had all these little poles in between it, and it seemed overly complicated. So I just this is my take on it. Just dumbed it down a bit, made it a few less parts to carry around if you're moving it from location to location. But you can see he's pinned pretty solidly. That's got him by the throat, got him there. But I'll show you it in close up, do a few more shots of him, little mate getting caught, and then I'll move on and show you the next setup. So we'll do away with the spring pole, and I'll show you what else we can do with it. So to reset, take the old mate out of the trap, and you bring your trigger pole down here. Make sure we're in away from that stick so we won't get hooked up on there again. And alright, reset there, reposition our loop, noose. Alright, and then I'll show you the trap, and I'll show you old mate here going into it. Okay, so the next design, the way we're going to rig it, that all stays the same. So once you've got that in there, that's the basis of all of it. You're going to pull out that bamboo at the back there. I'm actually going to make a windlass type thing, which is two poles in the ground with a cord tied between them, and you'll wind it up like a like a wind up thing, like a propeller being wound up. So that'll be wound up with a pole in between it, and that pole will then act as that spring lever to spring the trap and put the tension on the animal to pin it to the top of the trap. So I'll do that now. When you put those two poles in there, you could, depending where you are, you might have two trees that are close together you can use without having to do this. But if you're in a big open grass area or in the swamp, then you'd have to do this. Just a thing to note is when you, the more you tighten it up, the more you put pressure on those poles that are holding out. So if you've just got them hammered into the ground, they're not trees, they're going to tend to bend in. So if you just put a pole between them at the top, prevents that happening, and it sort of holds it a lot firmer. But if you're doing that, then you need to have the height so that when you're winding that pole up, you can actually get clearance through there to wind it up. So got those two poles in, and I've got another pole on the ground which you'll see shortly. That's to stop this unwinding when I've got the rope between it. But yeah, this will be my spring pole, which will be under tension. So yeah, I'll tie the string on there now and show you how it goes together. Alright, on a between trees you'd have to tie another knot around the trees, but seeing as it's got the poles in the ground there, I can just tie an overhand knot. So I've just got a length of cord there. Just put them beside each other, like so, and just tie an overhand knot in that. Alright, so it's just an overhand knot. Pull it up tight. Alright, and you can simply slip that over those poles. Right. You insert that between the strings, or rope, or cordage, whatever you got, and you want to wind it the opposite way to what you want it to trigger. So if you want it to pull up when it triggers the trap, you wind it the other way. So if you're making a trap where you had a spike at the end of this and you want it to swing down and spear into whatever you're doing, so you want it to come that way, so you'd wind it the reverse of that to wind it up. But what we want to do, we want it to pull up. So if it's going up, we want it to go the reverse of that, so we winding it the opposite way, so we're winding it down. Alright, we just keep winding. Now I've actually made these poles too short. If I had them another 2 feet higher, I could do what I said before and actually put a spreader piece between them, so you have that tied off in there, and that'd stop them pulling in. So as I tighten this up, it's going to pull these poles in closer together. I've hammered them a fair way in the ground to try to prevent that to some extent, but they're still going to pull in a way, so you're going to end up, trap's going to end up like that. And the more you brace that, or if you're using trees, that means you can wind it up tighter. But anyway, for now, I'm just going to keep winding it up, so the opposite direction of what we want it to go. So just keep going. Alright, I don't want to position this because this is going to be my end I want to use, I reckon. Alright, I'll just keep winding, and you can see it's starting to pull those poles in now. So if you watch them on the camera, you'll see them moving in as they wind up. Now the other thing to note too is if you've got a weak cord on here, at some point it's going to break. Even this cord will break at some stage, but it's fairly strong cordage, so I'm hopeful that's not going to happen. But anyway, we'll lock it off there. Alright, so for now I'm just using this stick that I cut. I'm just putting that underneath it to prevent it unwinding. And then what I'll do is I'll actually lash that pole on that bottom rail to so it'll be, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but you'll see it in a long shot. I lashed it off to stop it unwinding completely, and then we'll go from there. So I've actually just stuck my knife under one end of it for pan down. Let's see what I'm talking about. So I've just stuck my knife in there to act as a temporary brace while I tie this side up. Probably a better idea would be to use a stick, so you're not shoving the point of your knife into the ground, but it's a pretty rough knife, and I bought it for $1, so it's giving it pretty harsh treatment to see how it's going to hold up. So far I'm loving it. Needs a new handle on it, but it was a big thick kitchen knife that I've just sharpened up a bit, ground it down to make the blade a bit thicker. It had a pretty fine edge on it, and I used that building the shelter, and it's started to bend a bit, so I ground about a 1/4 of an inch off it and sharpened it up again. Okay, so I've got that lashed off there. That's just preventing that from unwinding. So, you know, same deal as before we had the spring pole, and it was to pull down here, and we had it attached there with our loop through here to entrap the animal on that bar. This time I just attach it to here, but the trigger is the same setup. So here's our trigger we had from the previous trap, still tied on there, so it's still going to do the same thing. It's going to be hooked under there, tied onto the end of this pole, and yeah, when it triggers it'll pull it up in the air the same. There are differences. I find the spring pole, if you can use one, then use it. It's got a lot more pressure in it, faster release than this. This seems to have to unwind and build up momentum. The same with a deadfall. You know, your deadfall, you're starting from a stationary object, and it's got to build up terminal velocity as it's dropping. And even though this one is under more tension than a deadfall, it's still going to wind itself up to pick up that speed. So it's a slower entrapment, so it releases slower and pulls up slower. The springs there, it's just like a bow. Like if you imagine you've got all that energy stored in the limbs of the bow, as you draw it back and then it releases. So it's a lot quicker than this. But that being said, if you don't have access to poles that are suitable for a spring snare, then this would be the second option. So I'll go ahead and I'll tie that onto there, same as we did before with the spring pole, and then I'll tie the loop onto it as well, and I'll show you how it goes setting it off. It's the same as before, but yeah, it's a lot slower in actually the triggering and hoisting the loop up to entrap the animal. But anyway, I'll tie this off and I'll show you. Okay, so my battery just died on me, but yeah, so that's basically this trap setup. If you're setting it with bait, what you'd do is you'd have the whole setup would be the same. You'd put poles in the box in around the back here, so the animal can't get in the back, it can only get in through this front, so you're creating your own choke point, your own funnel, and you can put whatever bait in there you want, bits of fruit, rotten fruit, and that'll draw the animal in through this front trap. And if you supersize it, so if you use a big deadfall or a real strong spring snare, you could set this up for foxes or coyotes, wherever you are in the world, raccoons, you know, just depends on where you're at. Anyway, I'll do a longer shot so you can see the whole system working, and then I'll call it a night because it's starting to get late. I'm going to get some food.